Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today on St. Patrick's Day. Hope everybody's having a good day. Today we are here with Elaine Hinckley, who has been the president of Poricy Park for the past year or so, and she has lived in the area for about 36 years. Hi, Elaine.
Hi,
How are
happy.
you today? All right, so we're going to go ahead and start and ask you a few questions. First thing I'm going to ask is, can you talk a little bit about the history of Poricy Park?
Well, it's very fitting that we're having this on St. Patrick's Day because the man who developed the park, his name is Joseph Murray, and he came from Ireland with his mother in 1767, and he bought this plot of land to be a farm, and it was registered in 1767 in freehold, and he had a mortgage on it, and the mortgage was to Lydia Compton. The Compton family owned a large tract of land that stretched over to Sandy Hook Bay, and her descendants are still there today. And they were very excited when I happened across the document that showed that they gave the mortgage. And that's one of the few pieces of land that we have documentation about. Joseph was a stonemason, and he bought this piece of land with a cottage on it that was built by a former colonial person named Thomas Stillwell. And the Stillwells really spread out all over Monmouth County. Uh, Joseph married a young girl named Rebecca Morris. She was one of 19 children. Her family developed a large part of New Jersey, and Morristown is linked to her family.
Wow.
They had 4 children and a modest farm. And during the 1700s, Middletown became a hotbed of the Revolution, very strongly divided between Tories who were loyal to the crown and patriots. And there was a pastor of the church, and he was very, very sympathetic to the patriots. In those days, you could be excommunicated from the church if you were one or the other. And this pastor married them and supported them. And sometimes a patriot would get killed and the family would disown them and whatever. It was a very, very horrible time and a very rough time in our history. Joseph Murray became a patriot, and he did things for George Washington's army. He spied on the British movements in Sandy Hook Bay, and he was in the militia, and he would leave his family and do things for the militia. And one of his jobs was to procure some horses. And he went into town to a Mr. Taylor's house, and he procured a horse. And he was caught by Mr. Taylor. So the legend goes that Mr. Taylor threw his hat at the horse to make it jump up and rear Joseph Murray off. We don't know if it's totally true, but that's the legend, that Joseph caught the hat, put it on his head, waved goodbye, and rode off with the horse. Well, this deed cost him his life because Mr. Taylor was under house arrest, but he had his help spy on Joseph, and when they caught him alone in his field one day, they shot him. The bullets didn't kill him, but they bayoneted him to death, and he died right behind our barn. And we have a memorial there for him. He's been honored as a Revolutionary War patriot hero. He's buried next to the Old First Church up on Kings Highway, and there's a monument and the American flag over there. In those days, they took all of his possessions out of the house, put them in a pile, and burned them. Rebecca, because she was one of a very large family, was fortunate enough to have siblings take her in and her children. Her children grew up, and it was her son and grandson that searched and had the father's body moved from one burial ground to the Old First Church. And this farm stayed in the family for many generations, and it was slated to become the site of the Middletown Sewer Authority when a group of citizens combined and they arranged to acquire the land. It had become a dairy farm, and they acquired the 250 acres, and the sewer authority picked another piece of land closer to Sandy Hook Bay where it exists today. And so that's how this became a park. These citizens 45 years ago were able to get money together through donations. They went to Green Acres, they bought the land, and they turned it over to the township to own. And that's the beginning of the Poricy Park Citizens Committee, which became Poricy Park Conservancy. And we were just, I think, 45 years old this July.
Oh, wow.
So that's a brief history of how we came to be. It's a beautiful tract of land. It includes a marsh, rolling hills and fields, a woods, a large pond, and it also has a unique stream which has fossils in it. Goes back to the Cretaceous age. And people come from all over the world to search for they're seashell fossils. They're not dinosaur fossils. Everybody, when you think of fossils, you think of the dinosaurs. But these are oysters and worms and very interesting things. And we have a fossil bed, and that's free to the public. We do charge, or we had charged for guided tours. If you make a reservation and we have to hire a guide, that gets taken care of.
Okay. Wow. Very interesting. So, can you talk a little bit about the Murray Farmhouse now, please?
Yes, I researched that. We did a little newspaper article a few months ago. Thomas Stillwell apparently built it, and it was a shack. When the Conservancy came across it, Marcia, and I've been looking up her name, I misplaced her last name, she purposely set about to restore it. And it was upstairs, it has 2 living rooms, above that were 2 bedrooms, and below it was a kitchen. We have one of the few surviving beehive ovens on the East Coast of the United States. It still works, and it's quite a thing to see. And right now we're in the middle of acquiring a grant from the Daughters of the American Revolution where we'll match it, and they're going to reline the chimney because we are concerned about a fire in there. Because Joseph was a stonemason, he was very clever, and he arranged to have all the chimneys from the fireplaces on each level joined together into one chimney because you were taxed by the number of chimneys you had. So he had 3 fireplaces but only 1 chimney. So you can see the handiwork of his fireplace and chimney today. The house was restored on the original foundation. So the kitchen is down in the basement, and there are bricks on the floor, and it's quite an interesting building for being so small. They've added some things and removed some things to make it more authentic. And we have little models outside of a privy. We have some tool sheds. And the barn is very interesting. It was built from wrecks of ships. The timbers were hauled over from the beach, and you can see stains of salt water in the beams. Some of the beams are 3 feet wide, and it was all hand-hewed, and it has notches where it was put together, and pegs, and that has a food cellar under it, and you can drive a wagon through the barn so that you could put the hay up in the loft. And I guess they had some cows and sheep, and all the animals they had in the colonial days were much smaller than the animals we have today.
Very cool.
And Poricy Park, we looked up the name. Nobody knows where the name came from. It's not in any dictionaries. We think it's a corruption of an Indian name and a colonial name that they came together and made this. Maybe the Indians called it something, and they translated it into Poricy. The Lenape tribe lived in this area, but they did not have a written language, so we don't have written records. And so Poricy Park is a tributary to the Navesink River, and it joins Big Brook, which runs through Marlborough and Colts Neck to the west. And all along this stream, you will find fossils.
Okay. Wow, that's very interesting. Poricy Park has a lot of history. That's really amazing. So, can you go on and talk about some of the activities and programs that Poricy Park offers?
Yes, well, the Conservancy is as interested right now in working to preserve the historic farmhouse. And we're just in the middle of starting a partnership with a group called Oasis, which is another nonprofit that helps autistic young people learn trades. And they have their own farm in their own house. And as they grow and learn the different skills, I'm still not knowledgeable about this. They've invited me to a tea. But how we're working with them is they were interested in continuing our colonial garden. We went from paid employees to totally volunteers in the last year. And we didn't have experts to take care of the colonial garden. And they have offered to do this. The colonial garden is it's a modest garden. It's something the size of a colonial family would have, and we're only growing the same crops that Rebecca Morris grew herself. So they've already cleared the garden. They have raised beds, and they've planted garlic, and as the weather changes, they'll plant more. It's also fenced 7 feet high because we're a nature preserve and we have a lot of deer, and they will eat everything. So we're going to continue that, and the Monmouth Conservation Foundation is interested in giving us pollinating bushes because they have a program where they're going to help build a butterfly house, and we asked them if they'd build it at the park, but they're going to do it at a county park because you need a full-time naturalist. But they're going to give us bushes so that we can attract butterflies and bees. We have a beehive, but the bees are being killed by beetles. And, so they're going to get another group of bees into this beehive that's in the nature center. Right now, there's nothing. The other thing is one of our new trustees is going to, she has a plan to plant a cornfield in the field just west of the farmhouse and do it with the help of an organic chemical company, and they want to see how their product will work in New Jersey. They sell it out in the Midwest, so we're excited about that. We're going to plant this field. She has to figure out how they're going to plant it. She would like to do it with a horse and plow. I think we might just look for a volunteer tractor. If we get it growing, we'll have a cornfield for the fall. And we can make a corn maze and have kids come. School kids come to the park all the time, and they take a tour of the farmhouse. They get a lesson on how the family lived. They go into our schoolroom and they write with quill pens and learn how a horn book was used to learn the alphabet. And they do some colonial cooking. Making butter and ginger snap cookies, and then they go to the barn where they learn how the children played games and amused themselves, and they see all the tools that the farmers made. Wow. The other thing we offer are hikes through our fields, and we have marked trails. You can go to the fossil beds, and the Conservancy has, at this time, we have 3 fundraisers a year. And coming up in a month is the car show. It'll be our 2nd annual one. We're very excited about this. We're getting all the automotive companies in the area to support us. I just got a new one today. George Wall of Ford is going to be on board. We have Straub of Keyport and Bueller of Hazlitt. And all the smaller companies in Middletown participate. Last year we had 1,000 people come for the first time. So wow. Double that this year. And,
very impressive.
Yeah. And, there we have a rainforest or a rain garden. I'm also getting the Navesink Garden Club to be a participant, and we're trying to get more and more volunteers into the park and actually let the people of Middletown, which has 68,000 residents, many of them were not aware of the park. And we want them to come and enjoy it and participate. We notice more and more people walking their dogs. We're dog friendly. Somebody asked me about horses, and the township said, I think there's an ordinance against it. And so I don't know. We don't have horse trails, but we do have dog trails and kid trails. And I catch people in the park looking at the stars, because there is no, if you go down in the fields, you have a colonial view of the sky. And when we have comets and things like that, people come out to the park and wait till it gets dark, and then they look up at the heavens with their telescopes and whatever.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to experience that.
Well, that's what, last year we had some people in the park, and the police came in and they said, "Oh, Mrs. Hinckley, it's me. We came to look at the comets." I said, "Okay. Tell the cops it's all right." And we have the Middletown Historic Society, which is now meeting once a month in our nature center as our guests. And they bring in guest speakers that tell about the history in the area. They usually get 30 to 50 people out to a meeting at that group. So we're seeing, different groups. Maybe the Navasink Garden Club will come now and meet once a month, and we'll get more gardeners.
Yeah.
And that's our plan, is to spread out, preserve the park. It's a nature conservancy. We don't see the animals much, but we have deer, we have foxes, we have possum. I know we have a few swans.
Wow, beautiful.
So I don't know if we might make the trail to the big pond a little more accessible as we get more funds. We're always looking for projects. We don't want the park to become commercial, but we want it to be an oasis, like Oasis is.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this great information about Poricy and the history and the different things that you can do there. We hope this spreads some more awareness and gets Poricy's name out there to some more people that haven't heard of you yet.
Great.
Thank you so much for your time, Elaine. Have a good St. Patrick's Day.
Same to you.
Goodbye.
Bye.